All right, cool. So, Jack, what's going on? How's everything been just over the last month or so, I should say?
Yeah, it's been about what? It was April. I'm looking at my notes here.
Early April, almost too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's see. How's it been? What do we got going on here? Well, I'll tell you what, last week really sucked. For
All
me
right.
anyway.
So talk to me about that then, just to begin. Was it a series of
Yeah.
trades? Was it just one that knocked you out?
Well, I was following AMD for a while because it's kind of slow and I felt like it was something that I could handle.
Hmm.
And let me turn to those notes here. Okay. I got some pretty good notes from 4:30 on. April 30th on. But well, couple things. I'm still not as good as I need to be as far as exiting,
Okay,
but I'm getting better. How's that sound?
sounds good to me.
Um, and I'm not sure, like, if I bought something and put a stop market on it and then went to resell it again, wouldn't I have to? I don't know how difficult that's going to be with the platform that I'm using here, but I guess it wouldn't be all that difficult.
With level two, that's why I like entering off level two, because it's just the simplest way to place your orders and to change any orders too if need be. So, just as a quick example, I'm currently short on AMD right now. I took this trade with one of my students, Kurt, over here right before we started. Could have gotten out, taken some money. I hung on for a bit. The market's dropping off. I think that this has a little bit more room to go. But let's just say if I wanted to place a stop market order out there, right, just right now, let's just
Mm.
say, just 28.40. Okay, it's out there. So or it's just set. So if I wanted to, let's just say get out of this trade, let's say if this begins to drop and drop and drop. Well, at that point, what I do is just click X bids here in yellow, cancels the order, the stop market order. I would need to just change my order type to limit, and from there look to configure my limit price to get out. You could also, and in the case of AMD in particular, you can do this. I would not suggest doing this for other stocks as much, but the close button right here in orange, this gets you out at market. This is basically market exit. So if you have a stop market order out there at 28.41 and you say, well, screw it, let's just get out and click close right now, it just does the
Yeah.
work for you. It closes this order. It cancels. It closes the order out there. It closes out your full position.
Right. Unfortunately, I'm not using TradeStation,
Oh,
so
shit, I forgot you have
I probably
different.
will soon because I didn't want to, most of my money was tied up in long trades, and so. But yesterday I started selling my stuff off just to get prepared for this downturn, so I didn't get screwed too bad. So I did
Yeah,
have some cash now to
yeah.
close.
Fausto is heavily emphasizing that just from yesterday alone. All right, so with
Yeah, I was actually doing that in the morning, and then I heard him say that in the afternoon. I'm like, all right, I'm on the right track here. You can always buy back in later.
yes, exactly. That's a
Let me
whole
tell you
different.
what I've been doing here with the
Definitely,
AMD.
definitely.
All right, so last Monday, the stock market was like very erratic, and it seems to me like AMD kind of follows the market.
Yes, to a
So I was
degree.
kind of
It's a, it's a Nasdaq 100 stock, so it will more so than others that we trade.
so I was watching that, and anyway, I got in Monday the 20th at 9:41 a.m. at 2673.
Okay. Give me a quick moment. I'm going to go back just a few days. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. All right. So last Monday was the 20th, you had said.
Yeah, up at 9:41 a.m.
All right. So before I even go into the entry, let's go into this here, the pre-market charting. We see Pretty strong resistance. Well, you'd figure 27 normally, and I would say so. But it does look like 27.05. I mean, beautiful top here going into the morning. So if I'm focused on AMD leading into today or into this day, I'm focused on 27.05 as a breakout level up. 2680-ish, we would say, as a breakout level down. I say that just from simple support resistance. Now let's go into your trade. So 945, you had said, right?
It was 941.
941. All right. And what was the entry price?
2673.
2673. All right. All right. Was this a long or a short trade?
With long.
Long. Okay. So right away, just there's one issue that I see on this trade already that I recognize. We ended up buying while the stock was trending down.
Right.
It's as simple as that. Just one of our first rules that we went through. We have to make sure that we are buying while the stock is currently trending up or shorting while the stock is currently trending down. While this stock is trending off these highs downward, there's only one way that you should be thinking. Now, the question will be, if when this begins to break above resistance, do we begin to see that resistance hold as support? Meaning that 2680 was a strong pre-market level. I would say 2690-ish year two or so, but 2680, very strong pre-market. If it breaks below there, you figure you will have a steadier short opportunity. So figure a strong support could become a strong resistance. And from there, one second. And from there, by the time this ends up breaking above 2680, that's when you could begin qualifying yourself. And that's the key word that I like to say. Qualify yourself to take a short position or a long position. Doesn't mean that you're going to. Doesn't mean that it's, a given that it's going to make a move back up to 27. But at least you could qualify yourself to take a position at that time. You still need to see volume on time and sales. You still need to see, more volume growing on the bid, etc. So
Right.
that's what I tend to focus on as far as, when the current trend of the stock breaks.
Okay.
All right. So where did we end up getting out on this trade is the question now.
951 and 2654.
2654. Okay. Gotcha. And then what happened afterwards here? Naturally, thing freaking went back up. So with AMD,
Come back into it a few minutes later.
You got back
2 minutes
into it?
later.
Okay, so then that was from 2650 or shortly above there. Where
I
did
got
you,
in at 2062
okay, where do you end up getting out?
at 953, and I got out. It went back down, and I got out at 2653 again. I lost 9 cents on that one. Just 10 minutes later.
Wait, so you got back in at 2652?
62.
Oh, 2662. I'm sorry, you got back in at 2662, and then you ended up taking a 7-cent loss again on that one, you're saying?
Yeah.
I got it. Okay. So I just didn't know the full story there. So yeah, the first entry we went through. With any trade though, whether it be any of these that you took or, the one that I'm in now or just any trade that I take with a student in a coaching session, upon getting into the trade, you need to have, and it's so generic to say, and Fausto says this in phase 3 so frequently that it makes me just, ugh, but you need to have a game plan. And I like to go more specific in what a game plan should consist of. A, how much were you expecting to make on AMD? That's the first question. By taking the long trade at 2672, 2673, where did you anticipate to take a profit?
It was 2662.
No.
I was shooting for,
the first trade you had said right here.
oh yeah, I was shooting for a 20-cent profit.
Okay, so to get out around 2695 or so.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we shoot for a 20-cent profit, then I'd like to personally risk at most half of that. At most half of that. Um, that would be a proper 2-to-1 reward risk ratio that you would be employing. So, with that in mind, you should look to risk about half of 20 cents, 10 cents on the way down. So, at the most, you should have your line in the sand set around 26.62 or so. But that's
Right.
just the very, generic base to work with, 2-to-1 reward risk ratio. So from there, it's a matter of asking, well, are there any other levels underneath 26.73 that I could base as a support? AMD 2670, 2667 holding really nicely here, of course. So, hey, if it breaks below 2667, we should pretty much look to get out right away, as if that was support earlier and it broke, well, the next time it breaks below that level, it's likely to break lower. That's what I call a second attempt breakout, where, if a stock attests a support level and it breaks below it once, if it holds it again later on and then breaks below it a second time, it usually ends up moving lower. So in this case, just with seeing 67 hold so nicely, you should simply look to have your stop set below there, just in case. Because again, we're going against the trend to begin. So throughout the morning, if we're priming ourselves to make 20 cents, at most, we should risk half of that. And from
Right.
there, by having that stop right away in that trade, at least it gives a little bit of security. Now, on the second trade, it's so easy to look at this in hindsight. And I say that because, it sounds like there's slight frustration with this day, understandably so, much like any trader that comes to me with, a string of losses or a series of losses or one big, whatever it may be. I get
Yeah.
it. I go through the same shit. But that's why I like to say I know that this stuff's in hindsight. I know that, so it's easy for me to say what's going on here. It's easy for you to nod your head and agree with me right now. In the moment, it's always going to be more difficult to, apply it live. But let's focus on the consistency of the patterns of support resistance, not just for this AMD, just for anything else that we'll be watching going forward in the next 30 to 40 minutes. With AMD, notice that it dropped lower, started hitting 26.50 now, 50-cent level. So the thing is that if we're getting out at 52, it sucks to say this because it's just hindsight, we may as well hold until it breaks below 50, right?
Right.
Like, we may as well wait. Like, what's another 2 cents, right? A 50-cent level we would figure would be very, very strong to begin with. Now, again, just aside from AMD or aside from this specific trade, do you recall, Jack, if this was were you watching AMD going into the market open this morning? Meaning that were you watching this in the pre-market, identifying support resistance?
Let me see if I can find my notes for that day here. Because I started watching this stuff pre-market.
The reason I ask
It
is
might
because
might have been a couple days after that I started looking at it pre-market. To be honest with you,
okay, no, that's
now
fine.
that I think.
I appreciate that answer because asking that gives me the ability to know if you had time to really dig through the charting on AMD before taking your first trades. So, the question was
No, I'm sure I didn't that day, but I have been doing that lately, pretty much regularly.
yeah, it
Since
certainly looks like 2655-ish or so is a pretty strong level. The last time it was testing around it. So just point being, you'd figure 50-cent level would be pretty strong to begin with. It was trending down there, and it was the first time it was testing that price. So, if we're holding on towards 2652, we may as well hold on another couple cents. Now, notice
right,
what happened here, though, later on. This is the point that we need to focus on. What happened when AMD broke above resistance? This was the point I was driving home in class last week. My best entries are when a stock breaks above resistance for a long, when it breaks under support for a short. So we were saying potentially, 2680 here. If it breaks above 2680 and holds as support, we see a lot of volume getting filled above that price on time and sales. Then I'm led to believe that it's going to make a strong move up. So it didn't do it there, it looks like. It comes back down. It's holding 2665 pretty well once again. It was holding that price really well earlier, 2667, that is. So we begin to see it hold at 50, show higher lows, build, Fausto flag, of course, but more importantly, by the time this ends up breaking above resistance the next time, that's your best attempt at catching AMD off of support, off of a bounce that we had from earlier. Technically, it
Yeah, I
broke
should
above
make 9 cents
resistance.
on my next one. I entered in at 1013 at 2664, and I got out at 73.
Nice. All right, so that's a very good exit at the least there, just because once it ends up popping, you have to expect for it to move faster, or at least smoother up to the next price.
Yeah, figured I got out before it hit 75 and started dropping, and might have hit it and started coming down. I don't remember.
So, were there any other trades aside from these that you took a hit on? Were there any others from this day or anything just from the last week?
Yeah, that day I did like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got lucky because I was doing something with my long-term stocks, and I had it set at 200 instead of 1,000.
Oh,
And one time I was up 2 cents, and the other two I was down 6 and 8 cents. So luckily I didn't get screwed on those two.
a blessing in
But
disguise a bit.
yeah, so I ended up. I mean, I don't really want to lose more than like 200 a day. Is what I figure.
Yeah,
Maybe I should change that because like what my goal is right now, and it's still my busy season, but I'm trying to focus more on this. I carved out some good time last week and this week to do this. But I figured a reasonable goal because I need to become disciplined because I'm not really a very disciplined person, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
So my goal is to make $200 a day and then force myself to walk away. Okay.
Mhm.
And so I figured 200 either way is cool, but maybe that's not good. Maybe I should make it 2 to 1 like with the regular trades. I don't know.
So let's go through today at least, and from the morning picks, and I can go through kind of what I was watching, what you could have watched elsewhere otherwise, and just go through different setups. It's a matter of seeing the same patterns in regards to support resistance, but just on several different stocks. In Traders Talk this past week, I went through a practice to everyone saying how, if you want to react to these patterns better and just knowing that it's going to make a strong move, you need to go back on, let's say, like AMD here. For all of the days that AMD made, a 70-cent downtrend in the morning or whatever the case may be, why did it make that move? What level did it break? The more frequent we see that, the better that we will react to it later on. Here's just one for reference. AMD was holding support on the chart. Whoops. AMD was holding support on the chart fairly well around 2890 this morning, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You'd figure if AMD breaks below 2890 with big volume on time and sales, it's likely to make a pretty strong move down. Well, this morning when AMD opened up, it's not just a matter of using the chart, but it's also a matter of using the order book, looking at level 3. So on level 3, although 2890 was holding on the chart, we had a massive iceberg order at 2880. So I'm not going to short AMD under 2890 if there's a gigantic order sitting there on the bid at 80. So I need to wait for that support level to break first. this was holding so well on the chart. So otherwise, I would definitely look to short AMD if it broke under 28.90. But with that large order on the bid, I wouldn't have done it. And it held the first time. It actually broke under it at first and then popped right back above it and held after. So again, kind of what I'd mentioned before, the second attempt in which the stock breaks below that level, it ended up making a sharper move down, a lower low. So, this was a setup on AMD from yesterday that looked phenomenal as a short. If AMD breaks under this support, it's likely to make a very sharp move down. But the
So you
iceberg,
didn't think it was going to go down because there was a big order under that?
well, it's all about opportunity cost. If there's a 200,000 share order on the bid at 28.80 and, we go short at 28.89, well, we kind of have to think worst case scenario. What's worst case scenario? Well, it bounces off of that iceberg and it begins moving up. If that's the case, are you worth 8 cents a share at most, 9 cents a share?
Yeah.
You are? That's your worth? I'd like to think that
Oh,
exactly. And I'm just playing, but that's what I was asking. I'm not worth 9 cents a share maximum. You're not worth 9 cents a share maximum
all right.
on 1,000 shares and $90. I mean, yeah, and maybe a few seconds. That's a really good profit. Don't get me wrong, but I want to try and take trades 15, 20, 50 cents a share at times, depending on the
Right.
move. So if AMD breaks below 28.80, I definitely think that we could see this make a sharper move, 20, 30 cents probably. And of course, in hindsight, much, much more it broke down. But it's just a matter of waiting for that level to break first. Um, Let me give you an example of
I, I think I need a. I don't think I fully understand how the iceberg orders work.
okay, so let's start. Let's go to OBLN then from today. OBLN was my easiest trade this morning. It was by far my easiest, but everything else this morning wasn't as easy, I have to admit. So I was happy with this trade, but it was based off of just the setup. It was based off of something very similar to what we were discussing on AMD. At least in this case, though, OBLN had a pre-market resistance here at $1.50, right?
Mm-hmm.
Holding really well. Now, what would happen if OBLN breaks above that 150 resistance and we see a lot of buyers coming in? We see a lot of buyers eating up the orders on the ask of level 3. Well, we'd
Right.
have to think that the stock would make a sharper move up in a shorter period of time. So when we saw OBLN open up this morning, there was an iceberg order on the ask at 150. It was so on my TradeStation matrix, it was on the ask side here. Let's just, say 150,000 shares on the ask at 150. Just giving you a number. Well,
Right.
that's going to act as resistance, right? So until that level breaks, I'm not going to be convinced at all that OBLN will, make a sharp move from 150 up. I have to assume that level is going to just hold. So I'm not going to be as inclined to get in until it breaks above 150. So when I discuss, what I call a setup in class, and this is a great setup, it's not a guarantee that the setup that you're envisioning will move or go the exact way that you're looking for it to go. For example, OBLN was up 30% this morning, right? It was up 30,
Right.
35% in pre-market as it was under 150. And yesterday, the stock ended up making a huge move as well. So what's not to say that by the time the market opens up, traders that are holding on to OBLN, they say, well, I made a fortune on this trade already. I'm just going to get out and take my money and run.
Right.
Well, we always see that, right? We always see these stocks pull back at the open, make such a big move in the pre-market or the day before, and next thing you know, you end up seeing the stock tank. So I'm not going to buy until that iceberg order breaks. And if it doesn't break, and if the stock actually ends up breaking support here, then I'd like to think that the stock will only continue to drop. So as far as identifying a setup, let's actually discuss a short opportunity, much like we did just before on AMD. Let's go to Tiva, and we'll go to Tiva from the other day because Tiva was as good of a short opportunity as I could find. We were watching
All right, let me
Tiva.
ask you something about shorting. All right, so if I'm going to short something, basically I sell something that I don't have and then I buy it back.
Yes, that's exactly it. So if your broker has the shares to short, they'll give them to you right away. So just really quick with Tiva on TradeStation, at least notice it doesn't say next to the symbol, it does not say HB in parentheses. HB means hard to borrow. So it means that if I were to short Tiva while it's hard to borrow, I would get rejected. It means that your broker has limited inventory to give. So you would have to either call in or use, an app to request the shares from the platform, and from there they'll potentially give it to you.
And where would I see that on Ameritrade?
It should be next to the symbol. I mean, it should give you some identification as to knowing if the stock is hard to borrow or not. Let me do the research for you right now. That's from 2014. No, it's from 19. I don't like bringing up other mentors, educators, etc. But if you go to Tim Sykes' website, he has a brand new article this week, actually, guide on how to short a stock using TD Ameritrade as an example. So I guess they go through a whole process as far as how to short with TD Ameritrade. I don't know if it would go through as far as requesting shares to borrow.
I guess I can just
Oh,
play
here we
it.
go. You can't reserve shares to short. TD Ameritrade doesn't offer that option. Look at that. But if you put in a short sale order and no shares exist, the transaction simply won't go through. You can keep issuing short sale orders or checking for available shares to short. I guess that means that you can keep trying to execute, or you can call in frequently to ask, but there's no locate app, I guess, like TradeStation has.
Gotcha. So where do those shares come from? Is it like people selling options or what?
Yes, options, and alongside that, so with a short, you technically have what's called days to cover ratio. It's not a fixated law in which you need to cover or get out of your position in a certain period of time. But let's say, for example, that if you end up, if you're long on a stock, technically your broker can automatically get you out of that position if someone's looking to, or no, vice versa. I apologize. If you are short on a stock and there's limited inventory, what your broker will do is, in order to get the shares for another trader, they might close your position out and give it to someone else, or they might look to give that position to someone looking to go long at that price in which you get out, I should say. So that's
So
one
they can
way.
just take it away, sell it basically.
Yep, exactly. So you have what's called a days to cover ratio, where according to the float of the stock and the move in which it had made, you have a certain period in time in which you can short the stock or hold on to it for a period of time.
Gotcha. All right, let's go back to talking about these iceberg orders.
Yeah,
Okay.
so Tiva, I'd just like to use as one quick example. Um, Notice on the 24th here, holding low of the day 2082 perfectly. At the time, there was an iceberg order at 28 or at 20, Jesus, at $10.80. I'm sorry. So that is support. I would not look to short Tiva unless if I did from earlier on here maybe, but the closer this draws to the low of the day, I'm not going to look to short the stock. I still have to anticipate that that iceberg order on the bid is going to act as support, and the stock will look to hold above it. You have to have a pessimistic mentality when it comes to iceberg orders and entering a trade, I should say, with entering a trade, meaning that I'm not going to short this stock until that level breaks. If I short at $10.81 here, or $10.84, whatever the case may be, you have to assume that that iceberg order is going to hold. It's there for a reason. Someone is looking to buy a large amount of shares at that price and support the stock from dropping any further. So until that order breaks, we're not going to go short. Now, with that in mind, the next day when Teva opened up, very quickly it started moving down, and by the time this ended up pulling down towards $10.80, it finally broke below that iceberg order, right? So this morning we were watching Teva once again.
Was that a sell? That was a sell order. They were asking 1080.
Well, so 1080 was support. So when I say support, always know that support is on the bid. Support is on the bid. Resistance is on the ask. All right. Now, with that, it's the same concept. You need the level to break first before getting into the trade, right? So when 1080 support breaks, you're seeing sellers dumping off their shares to the buyers on the bid. So technically, for every buyer, there's a seller. For every seller, there's a buyer. What you need to follow is the direction of the stock first, and then the reaction to what you see on time and sales. So for what you need to follow on time and sales, of course, for a short trade, red and purple on the tape. So if I see $10.80 break on level 3, big iceberg order got filled, and then from there we happen to see a collection of red prints flooding in underneath $10.80. At that point, I'm led to believe that not only is support broken, but we have people seriously interested in shorting this stock, or at the least just selling and dumping shares off on the bid, because it's the red and purple on time and sales that gives me that ability to say that. Without that, I would just say that support's broken. We don't really have much pressure to drop the stock price down lower.
I follow you.
So we have to treat the buy orders on the bid as support. We have to treat the orders on the ask as resistance. With AMD right now, I've been short on this from earlier. It's dropping and dropping and dropping. One thing that I'm noticing right now, Jack, is that there was an order on the bid. There was a pretty big order. It was like 70,000 shares. It was at 28.13. And earlier I was commenting in the trading room that we had an order pulled at 28.13, and I still don't see that order showing. There was about 70,000 shares, but I don't see it now. So if support's pulled, wouldn't you like to think that the stock will just continue to drop?
Yeah, that's what you would think.
So let's see. It's not just a matter of seeing that order pulled, but it's a matter of seeing the actual volume getting filled on time and sales. So for here, at least, it looked like it was holding 28.20 as a base at first. It just broke, and then it's back up. So you'd figure a strong support could become a strong resistance here, perhaps. Now AMD is dropping with the market right now, right? So this could be a very good opportunity to hold on and see this continue to push lower. One tip for AMD, Jack, is this is one that you like watching at the least. I know that on the 20th we took a couple losses, but this is one that you feel comfortable watching, though, at least just as far as the spread and the volume filled on the order book.
It is. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if that's the case, then one thing that you would like to watch is not an indice or an index, but an ETF. I follow, of course, you know, I follow AMD every day. So I follow SOXL. This is a semiconductor ETF. So, you know, AMD follows the market, but if the semiconductor sector is taking off or dropping sharper, there's a good chance AMD will move with that more compared to just, you know, SPY or QQQ.
Gotcha. Taking notes.
Yeah,
Well,
so like
that's a
right
good
now,
SOXL. You said
SOXL, yep,
SOX.
yep.
Gotcha.
So notice that when this ended up, you know, beginning to break on my 5 minute chart, lower and lower and lower, AMD was moving with it. Not the prettiest, not the carbon copy, but it's moving with it to a degree.
Because support got pulled.
Yeah, that order is not showing still. I see an order on the ask at 28.30 that popped up, 46,000 shares. That's just right where my entry price was. So that just popped up a moment ago. So that we would, of course, consider as resistance here. TVIX is kind of just moving sideways. That's the um, VIX ETF. It goes against the how the markets do.
All right. So on AMD, I just pulled up my book here. Just died on me. So we got 1,000 shares at 28, right? And on the other side, we got 5,000. Well, they're going fast, looks like.
Oh no, yeah. So it's really tough to watch level three and focus specifically on each individual bid and ask. So for right now, I know that 28.20 is a level on the chart that was holding well. I know that 28.30 is resistance just on the ask, the iceberg order showing there. We had an order that was at 28.13, as I'd mentioned earlier, pulled. We have a big one showing at 28. We have one at 28.05. So those are the levels that I'm kind of watching into the next few minutes here.
Okay, so you look at the level like it's getting down close to 28. So you're looking at what's happening there rather than looking at these individual numbers.
Exactly, where this could potentially drop off too. So I'm still very confident that this will move down to 28 at some point today.
You're looking way down the book because I got 90 open and I'm not seeing it.
Well, the order just disappeared on the matrix at least. It only gives me um, so much visibility.
Yeah, it seems like I did better when I was just looking at the charts rather than looking at the book. And that was one of the reasons I kind of liked about AMD. There wasn't a lot of super large orders on there, that looked like they could affect it very quickly.
Well, at this stage in the afternoon now, or well, now we're like literally at noon, but you know, at this stage in the day, it makes it more difficult to trust support resistance every time, and for the stock to make a really really big move. So for this morning at least, if you were focused on AMD, was there a potential quote unquote setup? Maybe that's something that we could work with and then use level three from there just before we finish. So
Actually, I didn't look at AMD today. I decided not to look at it. Yesterday, a lot of the stocks that were called out looked like they were probably moving too fast for me, and I don't want to take a risk with the big spreads and stuff.
Mhm.
But yesterday, let's look at AMD. I still don't have the time on there. Okay, here's one. Tuesday, the 28th, at 9:53 a.m., 2808.
Okay. Where'd you end up getting out?
Now I gotta try to find where you're. I lost you here on my screen.
That is
I
either,
got out at 28.32
that's a really good
at
trade.
night.
I figured right away that was going to be a good, that was either going to be a good profit or you got out with a loss just over 28. That was the only two options that you had there. That's a solid play. Look what happens. I mean, it's hindsight, 2020. Again, you know what happened here, but huge pop. But more importantly, later on, when this broke above the iceberg order at 28, right? It broke above the giant iceberg order that was on the ask at 28. We see this huge spike in volume. So you would like to think at the least with that type of move early in the morning, like we see the first 30 minutes of the day, combining the time of the day with the pop that we have, the amount of volume and the break over that whole number resistance, I'm thinking that you take at least 20 cents on this trade. I'm thinking that that's a really, really clean 20-cent profit.
Yeah, and that's what I did. 24 cents on it.
Beautiful trade.
Then I disciplined myself to walk away after that because that was my goal.
And that's the best part, right? Geez, so that's the, like you had said, yeah, that's the best thing that you could have done out of everything that day. It stinks to do because you want to get the practice in, and watching this, I mean, to be honest, it's fun. It's like watching, it's like playing a video game at times, going from
It
one
is.
level to the
It's
next
great.
level.
Yeah.
Jack, I'll tell you, the last month and a half, I've just been kind of rejuvenated myself just with the interest of following the market again. I get excited to come here in the morning. This is truly fun. So that one trade, it's a catch 22. It's great that we did it. It stinks that now our day's over. That's it.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, well, maybe $200. It's not really that much. Maybe I should raise my thing. But what I really want to do is 200 a day for 90 days and then double it after that. So that's what I'm trying to do.
That's a great plan. I'd say even less than 90 days, if anything. We'll take it maybe step by step, if anything. But um, it's not just consistent as far as the profit, but it's just with that profit comes knowing what you're doing right and wrong, knowing why you're making the money on the
Right.
trade. So in Traders Talk, again, I was telling everyone that, hey, go back on all of the days that AMD made this exact run. What are the same patterns that you see? And before this broke above 28, Jack, the setup here was at 27.30. I remember this like the back of my hand. It was only a couple days ago, but there was a huge iceberg order on the ask at 27.30. It was from pre-market. It was actually holding 27.25 really well going into the market open. So you'd like to think, well, hey, if it breaks above 27.25, that's the level to watch. But
Right.
we had the iceberg at 27.30. That was the big level, and it was holding it well here too. So it showed it on the chart. There was a huge order on the ask, but again, by the time it breaks above
I
the
remember watching that shoot up, and I was like, trying to follow the instructions, not get in before 9:40. You know, because that shot up at like 9:33. It started going and just took off. So
and the first 5 minutes are just tough to catch at times because just it moves too quick, and even AMD with how much volume is filled here, this could pop right away and run without pulling back. So unless if you're ready to get into the trade by having your limit price set and your finger on the trigger, let's say if you have that 5 cent cap that I gave you at first, if we have 27.35 typed in on the limit and my finger on the buy button, that's the only way that we're going to catch this. If our eyes are glued to time and sales, seeing, the big iceberg order at 27.30 get filled, and as soon as it breaks above it, we try and look to buy. But more importantly, why did this simply go up? It broke above a big resistance. We had big volume getting filled. If not here, then certainly when it ended up breaking above 27.50, you have to think it's going to make a sharp move up from that point, right? Um,
right.
I told them in Traders Talk, would I have ever thought 29.60 here, high of the day? No, not at all. I'm just trying to get 20, 30, 50 cents a share in the morning. So, that's what I'm focused on. So just, hey, what happened here, it happened exactly here. Doesn't always
Yeah,
happen.
and where was the real first pullback at like 28, right?
Yeah, yeah. The first real pullback was at 28. It made the
Yeah, and that's what I was looking at because the first pullback's the biggest, and then I caught it right after that.
Yes, exactly. And the first pullback is the best pullback normally. So it ended up popping, and technically this is the first pullback in which it held. But after such an extensive draw up, you'd like to think the next time it pulls back, there's a better chance of it holding here as well.
Yeah, that turned out to be a really good trade for me on Tuesday.
All right, so why don't we do this, Jack? If you're taking trades throughout, well, tomorrow is Friday. This week flew just with us being off on Monday. But next week, if you end up looking to take some trades in the morning, I want you and I would encourage you to message me in the trading room early, just asking, hey, what stocks are you watching going into the morning today? I would definitely encourage you to do that. Like, as early as you can, like 9 o'clock Eastern time, the latest, because it gives me the best chance of helping you. For example, there's a student that I'm a lot more concerned about this student, a lot more. He's someone brand new and lost his shirt on a couple of trades. So I just said, same thing, message me in the morning. He did today. I told him at first a couple of setups. The number one setup I gave him, OBLN has been holding underneath 150 resistance really well in the pre-market so far.
Mm-hmm.
Pop. There it is. That's the setup. I told him as well a couple of others just for your reference. I said ZNGA 650 resistance was holding. That's likely to be a very strong level going into the market open. It was trending up well, so you figure if it breaks above 650, it can make a very sharp move up. Of course, it didn't do that. It went the other way, but again, it's just the potential. If it does that, you're expecting a very sharp move. Tiva, I had told him next, I said, Tiva, I could see support breaking at $9.45. That was a strong one on Tuesday, and it's holding again today so far in the pre-market. So this was a trade that I thought at first was going to move in my favor. It ended up dropping only 7 cents and then moved back up. So I ended up actually taking a loss on this trade, to be honest. I ended up getting back in with my student Kurt, though, later on in coaching. I took the short at 9.46 with him, and we got out at 9.33. So from that setup, I did take a loss at first. We ended up coming back, and once it re-broke that level later on, it made a lower low. So we ended up taking some money on this, at least on the way down. So just a
Nice. So I
matter of
took two trades today. When you called out OTLK about 10 o'clock, I think that one was hitting the high of the day at like
Yep.
279 or something.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it looked like it was, it broke it for a little bit. I took it at 276 at 10:15.
Okay. And where'd you end up getting out?
I got out at 10:35 at 272.
Okay. Tiny one.
Right.
Yeah. OTLK is one that we had high hopes for in the sense of the moves that it's made over the last, week or two. Just you could see how fast the volume crapped out on us. So, hey, took it, tiny loss. Look where it is now. That part I'm not as much into. It's just the fact that we took the small loss and then we just moved on. That's one I just kind of shrug off and say, whatever.
Right.
They're always
So how do you deal with it? Like I jumped into Tiva right a little while before I found the phone at like 9:40, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no, at 10:40 was the time. 9:40 was the dollar amount at 10:40, and it never did take off and go anywhere. So I got out with a 2 cent profit, but I forget where I was going with that. Yeah. So like when you got a lot of, we're showing 1,000 orders on the book, and it's pretty neck and neck on both sides with that. It seemed like to me with Tiva, like it wasn't going anywhere. You just need. I think I need to focus more on the charts.
Well, the
in the
charts show how strong the levels are to begin. 945 was holding really well as a pre-market level, and it was a level from the last 2 days that was holding very, very strong. So specifically, that's why I was focused on 946 from this morning. Now, when it breaks down below 940, upon getting in from there, you have to think what increments is the stock trading in, meaning from the pre-market, how slow or fast is the stock moving, and what levels are you seeing hold better as opposed to others. For a stock like Tiva, the way it was trading back on Tuesday and the drop that it had, if it's going to move similar to that, it's a stock that's moving roughly every 10 cents, every 10 cents to anticipate some sense of support resistance. So 940, 930, it ended up kind of just floating in between levels shortly after, as you had said. So, the later we start, the for the trades that we take going into the mid to late morning, I become more keen on taking the profits over time.
right.
Something
So
that we,
I got one question for you. I know we're running out of time here. Like, I'm trying to focus on like a 20-cent gain and a 10-cent loss.
Mhm.
You know, is but then I see people post like 7 cents, 5 cents, and I'm just like, maybe I should do more of that. I don't
well,
know,
well,
because I mean, there's definitely opportunities, but I hang on to them. Like,
yeah,
fuck it, I'm not going to do it.
but
I'd
that's the
rather
thing.
wait.
But that's the thing, though. I'm always going to try and take an opportunity that's worth my time, 15, 20 plus cents, right? But if I
Right,
have to pull the plug and take a couple cent profit, I don't mind doing that. Now, that's me, right? I'm talking about myself. That's the way that everyone should be in the trading room. That's just making sure that it's worth your time. Now, again, not everyone is the same in the trading room. Not everyone always listens to me. Not everyone, always listens to Fausto, or not, people traders can easily bring emotion into a trade and just break rules and just take crappy entries, like by buying a stock at $9.85. I don't look to try and buy a stock as it gets closer and closer and closer to a whole number, right? Because we'd figure a whole
right.
number we would act as a big point of resistance, right? Things like that, simple stuff like that you'd normally just
Yeah,
follow.
like I got into OCLK at 276 because it looked like it was going up, but then when it broke down by 275, I got out of it.
Yeah, but
You know,
and that I would say is also kind of different, just because that's recognizing just that the trade's not going your way and it's a tiny loss. But there are traders in a room that enjoy taking a 2 cent profit or 3 cent profit. I don't enjoy taking a 2 or 3 cent profit. I will if I have to.
crazy. Hey, I was gonna get out at like with the 5 cent profit, right? Because I knew I had to get ready for this phone call. And thanks for having your guy call me. And then I looked in the room anyway to see if you were still in there. I'm like, oh, he's still in there. Okay. But anyway, I could have got out of the 5 cent profit. I'm like, I'm going to hang out a little longer because I got time for this phone call. But then I got out at 2 cents. I'm like, well, it'll cover my trade.
Mhm.
5 cents doesn't excite me. 20 cents or more, then it's worth my time.
It's, it, it,
That's
it's funny because it just, I'm very patient with people. But in Traders Talk, I'll get an email before Traders Talk saying, "Hey, Josh, I took this trade on." Um, I can give you just anything here. AMD, let's just say I took a long trade on AMD this morning. I saw it spiking and I bought at 28.44, and just what do you think happened on this trade that went wrong? It was holding under 28.50. That's the major resistance. So there are traders that I see that just don't follow the protocol that we provide, and it frustrates me at times just because of that, because you can only say the same thing so frequently, and if someone just declines to not follow it, it's on them. But I look out for the reputation of Cyber Trading University. I don't want myself or this company to be known as a company that leads traders to lose money, right? So I have to do my best job to ensure that you not only not lose money, but for you to make money. So with certain setups, if You buy at 28.44, 28.45. I'm just expecting it to hold 28.50. Are you really in the market to make 5 cents a share, 4 cents a share? If you are, you're in the wrong business. So what I'm pointing to is that there are traders that whether they just decline to follow my instruction or they just like making 2 or 4 cents, that's on them.
That's
I mean,
crazy. Maybe they're retired and don't have anything better to do, but I
it,
can go out and make
that,
a hell of a lot
that,
more at work
that's
than.
that's the case. That's not even like, oh, it's possible. That's the case. I'm telling you, just with everyone that I coach, a lot of people are here all day watching this and trading, taking
I
tiny
mean, I
moves.
got to be making at least $500 a day, or I'm going to consider this thing a failure. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Because I can do that shit.
absolutely,
Watch people
absolutely
work.
agree. So that's where I say in the trading room, Jack, just that there are times where you see a lot of noise in the trading room. Like this morning, I had a trader call out RBZ worth watching, and it was 2 minutes after the market opened up, right? Now, don't get me wrong, this made a pop, but when we have a watch list today, Jack, that is about 12 deep, we had about 12 stocks on our watch list from today. Like, what's the point of calling RBZ out when we're trying to focus on 12 stocks at first? That was a horrible circle, but just 12 stocks at first, where those have a much better opportunity of moving the way that we would want them to. I deleted the comment. I said, no way. It's not even, and they messaged me. They got
It's,
upset. But if you were
it's
focused on
pretty
that,
much what I do. Like, who's ever doing the morning meeting, I get the list, I write it down, then I start looking at it, and I'm doing better. At least I'm looking to see if stuff's tradable for me, what the spread is,
mhm.
and I'm
and
looking at free market.
and this is a trader that who made that post about RBZ. It's a trader that only trades between $1 and $5 a share. So, they're clearly not focused on something here because again, this OBLN could have broke the other way. It really could have, right? Hindsight's 2020. But based off what we teach in class, based off what we go over in Traders Talk, at least this was such an attractive setup to keep your eyes on if you were looking to trade going into the morning today. So, again, could have went the other way, but it's a matter of if. If this breaks above 150, there is a very high percent chance that this will move up.
To be honest with you, these smaller ones, they scare me because, I would be more inclined to buy a shitload of them. You know what I mean? And then a little
Yeah.
bit of money goes a long way.
And it's also for the sake that these small cap stocks also just can crap out as well very shortly after too. So even though this did make a beautiful run up, it did drop off shortly after. So you have to be
You buy
relatively quick.
10,000 shares and you lose 10 cents, you're screwed.
Yeah, but now how about on the flip side, ANF, Abercrombie Fitch, from the pre-market, this was moving pretty well and it was holding support pretty well around $20.10. So by the time the market opens up, if it can continue to hold that as a resistance, there's a very good chance that it will continue to shake and break. Of course, later on, once it breaks below the next support, big volume spike continues to drop. So the reasons as to why we see a stock make such a clean move in the morning, it's all the same stuff. When a stock breaks above a big resistance with big volume, it's likely to move up well. Vice versa for a short. So it's really just a matter of learning how to identify these setups and juggle them once the market opens. It's a daunting task as far as juggling them day to day because the bigger of a watch list we have, the more options that we have. So we could be a bit more overwhelmed with more tools to follow or more stocks to watch, I should say. But that's where again I would encourage you just next week, more so, just on a new week, for you to message me just early in the morning, just when you're trading. Just hey, anything that you're watching going into the open today. I'll try and give you a list of 1 to 3 stocks for you to watch, and from there, it's a matter of just even if you don't take the setup, what happened to the stock from that point. The setup might not go the way that I'm looking for it to go. And if it doesn't, well, hey, we
Right?
sit on our hands. We don't take that trade. But if the stock does make a strong move from that price, notice the consistency of what happens after. It's very likely to make a big move, something worth your time, something that is likely to get you a good profit.
Gotcha. Taking notes.
All right. I have to hop out right now, though, just before my next appointment here. So, again, just message me next week in the morning. I'll have this recording out to you, though, just by tomorrow.
All right, great. And you've got my updated email address to send that to.
Yeah, the water garden creation. So that I only
Oh,
send you emails. Nothing else just goes to that.
perfect. All right, thanks a lot, man. We're getting it, dude. We're getting it. I guess I'm about 50-50 right now. If I can control my losses a little better, I'll be starting to make some money. Yeah.
Well, it comes just day to day, right? So again, that's where I just would want to work with you in the mornings, and I think by doing that next week, every day or most days, it'll be a lot more eye-opening. So let me put it this way, just quickly before I do run. There are light bulbs that pop on uh, for everyone. And as a new student, those light bulbs shine brightest and they shine the most frequent because just the more and more you study, it just begins to really brighten things up for you. But in the last 2 weeks, even I had a new light bulb turn on, and that's after 4.5 years of teaching.
Okay.
So, something new with EMAs now I'm studying that you see on my 5 minute chart. So it just is totally eye-opening to me, and it just makes me better understand support resistance even more, and that's coming from someone that's been doing this for 4.5 years already. So it's going to brighten up a lot more and a lot quicker for you coming up, I believe, is what I'm saying.
All right. Awesome.
All right,
Good
so
deal.
I'll talk to you soon, Jack. Have a great rest of the day and week.
Hey, thanks. You too, man. Thanks for your time. Take
All
it
right,
easy.
bye-bye.